Hello, I'm Eric Leblanc. I'm here to talk to you about the Stamets Network Splunk app and how it is working with Suricata and Splunk to take the better of the two worlds. I'm working for Stamets Networks. This is a company that we did found with Peter Manef. We have got headquarters in Indianapolis and Paris, France. And we are strong believer in open source, and we have different solutions that we propose to our users, and we're offering commercial solution, which is Stamets Network Detection and Stamets Network Detection and Response, which is something that we built on top of Suricata. We are really pro open source, and we are working with OISF on the Suricata development. I myself a board member of the OISF, and what we are proposing is a SELX turnkey solution based on Suricata Elasticsearch, and we also have the subject of this talk, which is Splunk, the Stamets Networks app for Splunk. And we also propose GopherCap, which is a nice tool to replace PCAP with some constraint. In this talk, I will introduce not Suricata, because we are currently at Suricon, but Splunk. And then I will demonstrate the IDS capability of Suricata in the Splunk app. Then I will switch to the network security monitoring capabilities, show a little bit of IP analysis, and I think I will skip the anomaly detection because it will be too long. And I will have some other question for you during the final show. And so what is Splunk? Splunk is the name data to everything. So it's a system that handles data from different sources and allow you to present them, query them using the search processing language, or SPL. That is really powerful, and that's a tool that allows you to do some crazy queries and advanced stuff on the data. So you can, even if the data are not exactly like you want, you can prepare them with Splunk and display them exactly like you want. So Splunk comes with some visualization, some dashboard, and it's available into multiple deployment style. You can use it in your company or organization with Splunk Enterprise, and you can run it in the cloud. Splunk is heavily used in security. It's used as a SIEM with Splunk Enterprise Security, or just with Splunk Enterprise, that is the solution where you connect to the data lake with a web interface, and then you query the data. It is using the SIEM model for common information model that is making sense of events from different sources and allow correlation between these different events. Suricata, as you know, has one if.json file that contains all the types of events that Suricata generates. So you've got alert based from signature, and you've got a network security monitoring event. And for the case example of signature, as you can see here, we've got a signature with some signature parameter, and we also have the metadata associated with it, and even the payload in some cases. Like here, we've got the HTTP response body printable, so we can see we've got IMZ. So that's the beginning of a binary, and we've got one signature that is network download, so that match. This format is really structured, and it makes it really powerful to use inside Splunk, because you can use everything to match on the different fields, and you can use, for example, the flow ID to correlate between the different events, so for example, between alerts and all the transactions that has been seen on the same flow. How do you get Suricata data into Splunk? If the first thing is that Suricata understands JSON natively. So you just need to send by one way or another the data to Splunk, and it will understand correctly the data sent by Suricata. So if Splunk and Suricata are running on the same box, you just point it to the file inside the web interface, and you're done. If ever you've got multiple Suricata and want to talk to a central Splunk, then in this case, you can use the Splunk forwarder or syslog. Splunk Forwarder is a tool developed by Splunk that allow you to send the data to a Splunk instance or a Splunk system, but simply installing the software and then pointing to the file in the configuration. So if it's so magical, why do we need an app? Because if you just send the data, you don't just have the data. So you don't have nothing to look at. You need to query them. You need to build your visualization. You need to do stuff. So it's long. So the first impact of the data is to propose dashboards and reports that are ready to use. So just install the Splunk app on top of your Suricata data, and then you will have something that you can use. Also, the Stammius Network Splunk app is proposing a SIEM model, so it allows you to correlate and to inject the Suricata event into the Splunk Enterprise security solution. And last not the least, it will also, this Splunk app will also allow you to demonstrate the Suricata capabilities in terms of intrusion detection, network security monitoring. And as we are strong believer in open source, it is available under IGP LV3 license and it's available on Splunk base, and you can contribute on GitHub to the code if you want to propose some new stuff. So first, let's jump on what was the domain name before, Suricata IDS, and look at the IDS dashboard inside Splunk. So what we are currently seeing here is the landing page of the Stammius Network Splunk app. As you can see, you've got on the left some stuff for Stammius Networks user, and on the right, you've got everything that is dedicated to Suricata. So as I mentioned before, let's jump into the intrusion detection system dashboard. We start really classical with some old school timeline where we use the category inside the signature to display the trend over time. This is really classical. Something that we are doing below that is a bit more interesting is to use the metadata that we are now commonly, what we find now commonly inside the signature and that appear in the JSON to have a better classification of event with some more information. So for example, by using this metadata keyword, you can know that the attack was targeting SMB client, the other one was targeting client endpoint, but the affected product were some kind of Windows or any client. And you have, this one is really interesting. This is the malware family. When a signature is covering a malware, there is this malware keyword that defines which family it is belonging. So something that is really nice inside the Splunk system is that you can define a link to inside to drill down in the system. So here we're going to click on Eternal Blue. And what we will see is that we got this Eternal Blue attack on the signature between these two IP, and the search is doing an aggregation. So I will see by source and destination IP with alert.signature, and I got the minimum timestamp and the maximum timestamp. So I know from which duration where we have seen this. So here we see that we got the problem for something like half an hour. So this metadata is really powerful. It allows you to get a clear vision of what is happening. So here, for example, PowerShell Empire, it's another good candidate for investigation as it is a post compromise tool. So that's really interesting. You can also build things like the top, where you can get the most noisy element in your network. But in a lot of cases, it's not really useful because you will just get lost in a lot of noise in a regular environment. Here, it's a small pickup with some parasite around it, a little bit of noise. So we got these two IP that we will see later. This is a good candidate for investigation. But what is really more useful is to do a rare or to get the low noise. And then in this case, you see a lot of more interesting things like uSNIF, Maldoc download. So things that happen just once, but in a lot of cases, when things happen once, they can be really bad. So as I said before, in the alert, we've got the metadata. So we can also build some detection on top of the system. So here, for example, we see something that looks clean, but Mozilla agent that looks okay. But then we got these guys that are not common, like WinHTTP sender, test, WinHTTP loader, and it appears that these two guys here are linked in fact with Streakbot. So yeah, you can build like this with HTTP, TLS, so you can build a lot of indicators based on the information that you have. And this makes this dashboard a good starting point to understand what is happening on the network. So if I switch back, so what are the key takeaways of this dashboard? By using the application layer metadata, we managed to have more context to understand what is happening, and we got a nice information about what is happening on the system. We also, by using the signature metadata, have a better classification from what we usually have with severity or classification. It's fine grain, it's more accurate, and in a lot of cases, the rules writers are taking more care about putting the metadata from using the right classification of severity. And one last point, if you are building your indicator, top can be useful, but in most cases it's noise. So it's better to use rare in search instead of doing the classical top approach. So as I mentioned before, Suricata is also generating a lot of events for different protocols on our application layer. And we're going to see what we can do in the system, in the Splunk app to exploit this information. So this is the Suricata for Zeek user dashboard. It contains some metadata, the usage of some metadata generated by Suricata over the application layer. As you can see here, we've got some DNP3, DNS, file info, flow, HTTP, NFS, SMB, TLS. We've got quite a lot of protocol. So here we've got a simple timeline, and then we got Zoom on with some requests on various protocol. So here, for example, we've got the HTTP user agent, some classical Mozilla BBC beacon. We've got some English in the room. And we've got this one that is quite interesting, Python Swift client, which Swift make me think as a French, as on European as the bank system. So let's get a zoom on it to see what we have here. So the drill down lead me to another page where I will have the request. So all the event for this Swift client. So we can see that we got something like 2000 hit on this one. We got the HTTP information. And the domain name is quite nice. That's interesting. So something that I can do that is really nice with Splunk is that I can add something to the filter. So let's just get a look at what other information we have on this flow. Wrong click. No, that's good. So search flow ID, and we got the flow ID search that has been added, and we see that we got 2 requests on the same flow. And if we look at the HTTP, it appears that in fact it's quite interesting, because here we've got a hit on this strange .gov, and on the other side we just have the host name that is e.com. So that's something quite fancy. We've got one HTTP client that is doing 2 requests in the same flow to 2 different websites, which is not really common. But let's get back to the rest. So we also have information about DNS with the request, the query timeline, and we also have something that is quite interesting, which is the TLS with a server name indication, the GS3 for the identification of the client implementation, and the GS3S for the identification of the server implementation. So here what we can see is that we got at least 4 boxes here that are taking the most, that are doing the most TLS requests. So let's zoom on it to see what is happening. And what we can see is that we got quite a high number of hits on this, and each time we've got the TLS information on here. What we can see is that we got a trace of what this TLS traffic is. It's in fact breaking point. So in fact, we are replaying Ixia traffic on this system, and we got some kind of just noise on this TLS request. So we see that we got something that is auto-generated. So we managed to sort out what was this thing. So this system allows you to get a clear view of the traffic. You can really dig in, do some advanced queries. But where it shines in the recent version of Suricata is on the work on lateral movement, because we now have SMB and the other protocols. So here what we can see is that we got a lot of users in the SMB event. We also get a user in the Kerberos event. This one look a little bit nicer from the other one that may be linked with Ixia. And we got all this information by simply doing the query. And we also got some other information like the version of the operating system, because during the negotiation of SMB, there is announced of the supported version and the version of the system. So here we see that we got something a little bit strange. In a lot of cases, it's tools that do not set the field. So we end up with this strange string, which in a lot of cases, it's a bad sign. Okay, so this is for the network security monitoring. It's just a quick look. Now let's get a look back at. So what are the key takeaways of this network security monitoring dashboard on the usage of network security monitoring data inside Splunk? We have a lot of event type that covers really a broad spectrum of what we can see in an organization. We've got the north-south traffic with internet protocol on IoT, and we got the east-west with SMB, NFS, RDP that I did not cover, but that is really interesting, and it came in Suricata 6. And we've got some other industrial protocol that we can find in the east-west traffic. So something that we can do with Splunk with regard to this data is to use the flow entry, but we also have to get communication map between the different points, get into the detail with the other events. So really, you can really explore, you can really hunt on this type of data, and it's really valuable for the visibility on the network. So let's get a zoom on something that I did not cover in this network security monitoring dashboard, which is the file info. The file info is file transaction logging. So every time there is a file transfer on the protocol that Suricata support, we will have an event generated with information about this file. So we will have the file name, the hash of the file, SHA-1, SHA-256, MD5 if you want. And we will also have the file magic. So file magic is identification of the first byte of the, by using the first byte of the binary, we manage to identify the type of file. So this is really interesting because once it's a cross-protocol event, because this event is available for HTTP, FTP, SMTP, SMB, NFS, so you don't need to work around the request and find the information in other place. As soon as you have a file, you know that you can look at file info and get the same info, like the hash or things like that, in the same place. So that is really convenient. But something that is really more interesting about this file info event is that it's client-side information, because when you download a file, it has a big chance that the name that you have seen in the network end up to be the name on the computer disk. And also the hash of the file will be the same on the disk. So that's also an information that you could collect from the host. So in fact, we managed to kind of collect information from the host by just using the network. This is true for north-south traffic like HTTP, SMTP, FTP, but it's also true, and it's really far more interesting for protocol like SMB and NFS, where you will have transactions that can be used for lateral movement. Okay, so here is the Suricata file information dashboard that is new in the Stamus Network Splunk app. And as all our dashboard, it starts with a simple timeline with event that are file info event. Over here, we can see that we got SMTP, SMB, NFS, and HTTP. Something that we can see here on the left is The file magic statistics, so ordered by count. We see that we got a lot of ASCII text, then HTML, then data, and then even Macromedia Flash video. It looks like some old traffic is running there. So let's have a look at this request here because it's an interesting one. So if we look at the table that we got here and the request that we have here, we will see that we need to work on the verbose mode. Go back to the event, scroll a little bit to be lucky. I am lucky or not? No, not lucky. Let's try another one. Nope. Checkbox. Definitely, I've got some problem. Okay, let's try this one. No, ASCII text. Okay, so in fact, what is happening, what I try to show you is exactly that. We have in the file info, the file name info here, and we have information about the magic, but in fact, it's long information with ASCII text and with no line terminator. So maybe it's not really interesting to have what is after the comma. And if you take images, it's even worse because in some cases, you will have the size of the image. So this is not really what we want. So in this request, we are going to transform the data inside Splunk to just get to this first part of the request. So how are we doing this? So we just do the request on event type file info. And the magic is here. We are getting in the field file info magic, which is the field proposed by given inside the event containing the magic, and we are doing a regular expression. So we want to we want to grab something in the regular expression, which is magic. It will name magic, and it starts at the beginning, and there is no comma inside the system, and we have at least some characters. So by doing this, we managed to create the variable magic that will contain exactly what we want, which is the part of the magic identification before the first comma. As we have seen, we got exactly that in the system, and then we can do the rest of the logic to display using the sum of the size, so that's the total sum of volume exchange for this type of document, and then we go to the mean, the max, some classic statistical computation, but that are really useful because it allows you to build really a logic on top of the data, and that's really valuable. So if we get back to the dashboard, we will see here a timeline with the same kind of data. But what is really interesting is that we got some file transfer anomalies of visualization that have been created, and they contain hunting recipes that allow us maybe to find some interesting thing. So the first one is really simple. It is just the list of download of executable sorted by size, starting by the smallest size. So as we can see, the first one is over HTTP, and it's something I think Android when I look at the detail before. And then we got this other one that really look kind of ugly. Long name, big entropy on the name, executable for Windows. The size is really small, like 4K. How can you have an executable of 4K? In the real life, when you download an executable, you have a big chance that this executable is 40 megabytes or something like that. Even a browser, I think now is something like 80 megabytes. So this is really suspect. So that's why we did just do this small research to find the small executable download in the network. And it seems that we are finding some interesting things. So we could zoom in, start the threat hunting, find that is really a problem, but we don't have the time here. So let's jump to another visualization. So this one is the following. In a lot of cases, we've got the attack. The machine is generating a random name for the file to avoid collision with other file, and we end up with a file with a name like this one that is not readable and that has a really high entropy. So by using the computation capability of Splunk, we managed to build the list by entropy of the file that we have seen in the exchange. So here we can see that we got the three first one are the executable that we have seen previously. So how are we doing this? So we are doing the query on file info. We are just matching on the file info magic that contain executable to get this. And then we are using a plugin of that is available as a UT something that gets you the Shannon function, that is a well-known function to compute the entropy. And we do this computation on the file info.file name. And using this, we can put this in the field and then do a sort based on this value. So that's really simple. We just import some new code into Splunk as a module that is available from the Splunk market, let's say. And then we did build our research, filter out the executable, build the Shannon, and then display the information we want and sort by the Shannon entropy value, which gives us this nice list here. And what we have here is we also have the three first one are interesting, and the second one, and the fourth one, sorry, is kind of strange too. Does not look like something you will download on your own. So let's get a look at this. Let's remember that. So and then we have this last one, executable file transfer on host on IPv4 host. So this one is a simple, is that usually when a user download, we have a DNS request. You don't often download directly on an IPv4 address. So here it's just a search that filter out the request and just get what is done directly on an IPv4 address. And as you can see, we are finding once more the guy that we have found here. So it's a multiple way of finding the same things, and that's really helpful in terms of certainty, because you just go through the list, you find things multiple times in the same place. So when you have multiple criteria, you have a big chance that in fact it's a real problem. So let's get back to okay, so what are the key takeaways of this file info dashboard on the usage of file info in threat hunting? This is a really valuable source of detection of threat hunting. Why? Because it's local information. It gives you information about the inside of host, and you got it from the network. With the addition of SMB and FS, we even have lateral movement information, potential lateral movement detection by using this system. So this is really useful, and it allows you to build some nice detection for lateral movement inside the network. And here Splunk really shines, because as you can see, we wanted to experiment on the entropy computation. So we just had to import one small library and then do the request. It was quite short. SPL syntax is not the easiest one, but it's short, and if you're getting used to it, you can really build the things really fast. So now that we have seen all these different data, can we try to build a little bit more of understanding on what is happening on the network? So let's jump into the IP analysis, where I will explain you how we collect things about host and graph it and visualize it, so it's easy to understand what is going on one host. So let's get back to our Suricata file information. Look at what we have here. So here we have 10755 and 1075101 that exchange this executable. So the destination IP is the one receiving the IP. So it looks like this little guy here has some problem because it is downloading some strange executable. So if ever they are run on the target, we are in trouble. So let's remember this IP address and get to the Suricata IP investigation. So here I need to add an input. So first I will just take 24 hours to have data. And then I will focus on this 10755. And you will run a query on this IP to get various information. So the first one that is coming is the alerts. So as we can see, we've got quite a lot of stuff. It looks like we've got some Drigbot, we've got some other malware, PowerShell Empire. Okay, so this is really a box that has some issue. We can see on the traffic that the traffic was located here. And we got the other information about the event type. Here we've got something interesting. By looking at the flow on tree, we can determine if we have a service running on the box and when it has been active. So by doing a request on the flow on tree generated by Suricata, we managed to know that this host has 135 DC RPC running. It has also SMB on 445, and it has DNS on the 53 and Kerberos on the 88. So if you know your Microsoft software stack really well, you definitely know we have an Active Directory. So this is just obtained by looking at the data and doing a computation to determine when we did start to see the flow, when we did add to see flow on this service, and then we managed to see that the service was active on the system. We are using the same logic below to discover things about HTTP user agent. Here we are doing this same kind of query to say that we got a Mozilla, then a WinHTTP sender, then test, and then another WinHTTP loader. So we are doing the same kind of query to see the activities of HTTP user agent on the system. So this is really something that allows you to grasp context on the host and see what kind, and to discover what kind of system we are in face of. So here we're doing that for HTTP user agent. We're doing that for the GS3 to identify the different clients. So here we can see that we got one client here, then small little bounce here, so that a bit strange that we got just one hit here on 24 hours. And we know that we have an Active Directory with a strange test user agent, and this test user agent, in fact, is this filtering bot if we continue to investigate. And what we can also find is that we've got some Kerberos logins. So we see that we got Marlo Zaragoza that did connect to VixBots multiple times. And by looking at the HTTP request, we managed to get some other information like what is the top visited, what is the less visited host. So in fact, here it's an Active Directory. So as you can see, we got just 3 hosts. That's the same. So we have got really low HTTP traffic on this box, which is correct given the fact that it's a server. And we got the same thing for TLS. And we got also something that is the top activity as a server, where we will display the number of sessions to each service, and the same, the reverse, the top activity as a client with the dest IP, the destination port, the protocol that we have seen. So by doing this kind of stuff, you really have a good idea of the activity of the host, and that's really valuable. And if we zoom on the 101 to see how it is looking in a different system, we also see that we got some bad hit. The HTTP is looking a bit strange too. The TLS correct. Some user did login, and we can see something that is more common with this kind of traffic here. So what are the key takeaways here? By using the flow event, we managed to uncover active service during the search duration. We can build a communication matrix. And by using other network security monitoring events, we managed to see the local activity, like which agent has been active during which period of time. And this is really valuable to extract the key characteristic of one host and try to categorize it. For example, one common thing that we will see during the attack is that a service will appear on the host following the attack because the user wants to connect back from some other boxes and then transfer files or things like that. So this is really useful to know that, okay, we got an attack and then we got this new service coming in on one host that we know since really long. So this is really powerful and it helps you to understand what is happening on your network because bad guys need to get out. So you will see them. So as a conclusion, Suricata is IDS on LSM. It's the best open source IDS. It's one of the top tier open source network security monitoring solution. It does file extraction and pickup capture on top of that. So you really have something that is quite broad and useful in your network. And Splunk is really powerful. The visualization are great, and the Splunk query language is really impressive. And you can use the Stamius Networks app for Splunk. It's available on Splunkbase, and you can contribute on GitHub. Thank you.